Hi, my name is Paul Quinterio. This DVD, No More Cardiovascular Disease, contains 3 presentations. The presentations are not that long. In fact, the first presentation is only 5 minutes. Yet most people that watch it never forget what they see and hear. The second presentation starts out by talking about 4 discoveries. 4 of the greatest discoveries in the history of the world pertaining to saving, enhancing, and prolonging human life. Each one of these discoveries in its own time resulted in a Nobel Prize. The first 3 discoveries, as you watch this DVD or watch it on the website, the first 3 discoveries most of you will recognize immediately. The 4th discovery, however, most of you will never have heard about it, even though it resulted in a Nobel Prize in medicine in 1998, a dozen years ago. Most medical professionals, most doctors have not heard about this. One prominent Utah doctor, after learning about this discovery, he was recently interviewed, and he talked about how he discovered this, and as he studied the overwhelming scientific evidence, in addition to the Nobel Prize, he became convinced. Then he became angry because he realized that he was just now learning about this, and he thought about all the patients he could have helped in the last dozen years if he had known about this sooner. The second presentation also talks about why this information was buried and who buried it. The third presentation starts off by talking about the science and how this discovery works within the human body to eliminate the #1 cause of death. You do not have to die today from a heart attack or stroke. You do not have to die today from a heart attack or stroke. Then the last part of the third presentation, you'll meet Dr. Joseph Prendergast, MD, practicing doctor for over 35 years, board-certified endocrinologist. And in June 2008, he was awarded the prestigious Father of the Year Award from the American Diabetes Association. Dr. Prendergast, who likes to be called Dr. Joe, when he learned this, he was excited, but then he thought, why me? All of my kids are grown up. Well, then it was pointed out to him that he was specifically given this honor for, #1, saving more lives than any other physician in the United States. #2, clinically testing and documenting the results of over 6,000 of his own patients. #3, admitting less than 1% of his patients to the hospital in 19 years. Now that's a current figure as of April 2010. A couple years ago, he hadn't admitted anybody to the hospital. And #4, not losing 1 patient to a heart attack or stroke in 19 years. Now medically, that is highly significant considering 80% of his patients, Dr. Joe's patients as an endocrinologist, have diabetes. And according to the American Diabetes Association, 2 out of 3 people who suffer from diabetes will die from a heart attack or stroke. And in 19 years, he has not lost 1. Again, medically, that's highly significant. And if I were a medical doctor or a medical professional or a physician, and I'm just learning about this now and caring about my patients, I would want to know, what did he do to achieve such marvelous results? Now consider this. In this consensus year of 2010, we know that there are approximately, even without the consensus today, approximately 309 million Americans. Americans make up less than 5% of the world's population, yet we consume about 35% of all the legal manufactured drugs in the world, prescription drugs, over-the-counter drugs. And we spend more money on health care, which I call sickness care, because you do not go to the doctor when you're well. You do not go to and take drugs. You do not take drugs when you're well. So we spend more money on sickness care than any other country in the world by far. In fact, we spend more money on health care, sickness care, than most countries produce in wealth. And so we must be the healthiest people in the world. Yet you can go and Google life expectancy from birth, and you'll pull up a number of listings. One of them is the CIA. or you can go directly to the CIA, Central Intelligence Agency, www.cia.gov. Type in those words, life expectancy at birth. It'll pull up 224 countries. That's how many came up today. And the way they ordered is from country number 1 all the way down. Country number 1, the people, the citizens in that country live longer than the citizens in country number 2, and so on and so forth. So we spend more money on health care, sickness care. We take more drugs. We must be the healthiest. We must be right up there at the top. Folks, we're not even in the top 10. Canada is, Australia is, Japan is, Hong Kong is. But we're not. We're not even in the top 20. We're not even in the top 30. We're number 49. Well, what does that mean? That means there's 48 countries in this world where the citizens of those countries live longer than we do. And yet we spend so much money on health care, sickness care, and take all these drugs. What's the definition of insanity? Insanity, that is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Now, in conclusion, if you are 40 years of age or older, you have a 50% chance of experiencing a heart attack or stroke sometime in your life. Now, would you get on an airplane that had a 50% chance of crashing? I wouldn't. None of us would. Yet, why live then with a 50% chance of someday having a heart attack or stroke? You watch these presentations, and you'll learn that you don't have to. Get with the person who gave you this DVD, and they'll tell you, after watching the 3 presentations, they'll tell you the rest of the story. Again, you do not have to die from a heart attack or stroke. Please take the time, watch this, and you'll know why. Thank you very much.
On September 11, 2001, America was viciously attacked by evil forces. 2,974 people lost their lives that day. Placing 9/11 on the calendar is another date that will live forever in infamy. Americans were shocked, devastated, and outraged by the deaths of those innocent individuals. Yet on that same day, approximately 2,500 additional Americans died of cardiovascular disease. The next day, another 2,500 people died. And again on Thursday, and Friday, and Saturday, and the entire following week. In fact, a total of 75,000 Americans died during the month of September from cardiovascular disease. More than 25 times as many people died of cardiovascular disease that September than were killed by terrorists. Cardiovascular disease is the #1 cause of death in America. In 2001, over 900,000 people died from this silent killer. That number is more than all the American soldiers killed in battle during all the American wars combined. An aggregate 44 years of fighting over the course of more than 2 centuries has resulted in 653,406 combat deaths. Think of it. More Americans die in 1 year from cardiovascular disease than died in actual combat from all the wars we have ever fought. On March 28, 1969, President Eisenhower died of a heart attack. Less than 4 years later, President Lyndon B. Johnson died from a third heart attack at the age of 64. He was only 47 years old when he suffered his first heart attack. The following celebrities all died from heart disease before reaching the age of 60. John Candy was only 43 when he died. However, John's father was even younger, dying at the age of 35 from a heart attack. At the age of 38, Peter Sellers suffered a series of heart attacks which permanently damaged his heart. A final heart attack killed Inspector Clouseau at the age of 54. Henry Fonda was 77 when he died from heart disease. However, he lived longer than everyone else pictured here. In June 2008, Tim Russert collapsed suddenly and died while preparing for the television show Meet the Press. An autopsy revealed that ruptured cholesterol plaque blocked off a main artery leading to the fatal heart attack. It's frightening to think that even though Tim Russert had access to the finest medical care in America and had recently passed a stress EKG evaluation and also was under the supervision of a cardiologist taking medication for cholesterol and blood pressure, he died at the age of 58 from his first and final heart attack. That same month, George Carlin died from heart failure. We just showed photos of 28 famous people who died of heart disease, 27 men and 1 woman. However, the last thing we want to do is add to the myth that heart disease affects mostly men. Heart disease is the #1 cause of death for both men and women. In fact, more women die of heart disease in the United States each year than men. In addition, studies show that women are much more anxious about developing breast cancer than cardiovascular disease. There seems to be more news and awareness regarding breast cancer than there is heart disease among women. Yet 12 times as many women will die from cardiovascular disease than breast cancer. It is hard to find someone who does not have a connection to cardiovascular disease. Who do you know that could be next? Which of your loved ones or friends needs an answer to this silent killer before it is too late? Part 2 presents an answer so powerful as to be a direct threat to the status quo of the multi-billion-dollar pharmaceutical industry. The Nobel Prize is considered the world's most prestigious prize. The nomination and selection process of a Nobel Prize winner is long and rigorous. It starts with a nomination of thousands of candidates whose names are scrutinized by experts until only the winners remain. Amazingly, it is not until the winners are announced that they even know they had been nominated. Every year since 1901, the Nobel Prize is awarded to those who, during the preceding year, shall have conferred the greatest benefit on mankind. Now, with over 100 years of Nobel Prizes to look back on, it is clear that some discoveries have conferred greater benefits on mankind than others. The following 4 Nobel Prize-winning discoveries are arguably among the best of the best. Nobel Prize number 1. In 1901, the very first Nobel Prize in Physics was awarded to Wilhelm Röntgen for his 1895 discovery of X-rays. The ghostly image of a woman's hand seen here appeared in almost every newspaper in the world. People at the time were stunned by this chilling picture. It was the hand that literally shook the world. Doctors, however, instantly realized that this new photographic technique could help them look inside the human body without surgery. Within weeks, they were using X-rays to diagnose broken bones and to find embedded bullets. On October 14, 1912, a man visiting Milwaukee, Wisconsin was shot by a saloon keeper. The bullet can clearly be seen in this X-ray. The man lived and carried that bullet with him for the rest of his life, dying 6 years later. The man was former President Theodore Roosevelt. Nobel Prize number 2. In 1923, the Nobel Prize in Medicine was awarded to Dr. Frederick Banting and Professor John MacLeod for the discovery of insulin. Before this discovery, and for thousands of years, a diabetes diagnosis meant wasting away to a certain death. While insulin is not a cure, this medical discovery has and continues to save millions of lives worldwide. If you suffer from diabetes, you are alive today because of this medical miracle. Nobel Prize number 3. In 1945, the Nobel Prize in Medicine was awarded to Alexander Fleming, Ernst Chain, and Howard Florey for the discovery of penicillin and its curative effect in various infectious diseases. It was a discovery that would change the course of history, recognized as the most efficacious life-saving drug in the world. Many of you are here only because penicillin saved your life or the life of one of your parents or grandparents. Penicillin's ability to cure people of many once fatal bacterial infections has saved so many lives that it is easy to understand why it was once called a miracle drug. Rushed into production during World War II, there was enough penicillin on hand to treat every soldier who needed it. By the end of the war, it had saved millions of lives and had spawned a huge pharmaceutical industry. Last but not least, Nobel Prize number 4. The Nobel Prize discovery you are about to see, most people have never heard of. Yet it is just as powerful and as life-changing as the X-ray, insulin, and penicillin. It is one of the best of the best. This discovery has the potential of saving approximately 2,500 American lives per day and millions of lives worldwide each year. The Nobel Prize in Medicine for 1998 was awarded to 3 American scientists for their discoveries concerning nitric oxide as a signaling molecule in the cardiovascular system. So what does that mean? The medical benefits of these discoveries can be summed up in 4 words. No more cardiovascular disease. And this without drugs or surgery. Dr. John P. Cook, MD, PhD, is head of Stanford Medical School's vascular unit. He wrote a book based on this Nobel Prize-winning science called The Cardiovascular Cure. This title alone speaks volumes. Seldom, if ever, do we hear the word cure coming out of the pharmaceutical industry. Treating the symptoms of a disease is far more profitable than finding a cure. On the back cover of this book we read, in 1998, the Nobel Prize was awarded to scientists for the discovery of a chemical produced in the lining of the blood vessels that keeps them free of plaque. Do you think the pharmaceutical industry wants you to know that there is a chemical produced in the lining of your blood vessels that keeps them free of plaque? Of course not. Nobel laureate Dr. Louis Ignarro, who also wrote a book based on his discovery. The title says it all. No more heart disease. Think of it. No more heart disease? What a bold statement. Yet the scientific proof is overwhelming. Don't take our word for it. Buy this book. Go to your local bookstore and buy this book. Or order online at www.nomorecardiovasculardisease.com. So why haven't you heard about one of the greatest Nobel discoveries in history until now? Hugh Downs and Bottom Line Books have the answer. Some of you may have seen this advertisement with Dr. Ignarro or have watched the TV broadcast. Bypass in a pill, wins Nobel Prize, then gets buried. Nobel Prize winner Dr. Louis Ignarro made a special appearance on the Hugh Downs broadcast to reveal the covered-up truth about this astonishing breakthrough. He's discovered a miracle molecule that could make bypass surgery, angioplasty, and blood pressure drugs obsolete. So why haven't you heard about this? The reason is, this amazing discovery has been killed by big money medicine, meaning big pharma. So how profitable is the drug industry? Marcia Angel, MD, is a senior lecturer at Harvard Medical School. She was the first woman to serve as editor-in-chief of the New England Journal of Medicine. She has written a revealing book titled The Truth About the Drug Companies, How They Deceive Us and What to Do About It. In her book she writes, the most startling fact about 2002 is that the combined profits for the 10 drug companies in the Fortune 500 were more than the profits for all the other 490 companies combined. It's all about the money. Cardiovascular disease is big business for the pharmaceutical industry. In 2007, statin drugs alone generated $34 billion in revenue to the drug companies. And according to the Journal of the American Medical Association, adverse drug reactions in the United States caused 1.5 million hospitalizations and 100,000 deaths, making it the fourth leading cause of death in the country. Twice as many people will die each year from adverse drug reactions than are killed from automobile crashes. To put it into perspective, it would be like a Boeing 767 fully loaded with passengers crashing every day of the year with no survivors. Do you think that would make the evening news? In the next presentation, we will illustrate how the discovered chemical produced in the lining of the blood vessels keeps them free of plaque. You will learn the most important determinant for your cardiovascular well-being, or lack of it, the buried truth the drug companies do not want you to know. At the center of our cardiovascular system is the heart. It beats approximately 100,000 times per day. Without time off or a vacation, your heart will beat about 35 million times in a year. Even at rest, the muscles of the heart work hard, twice as hard as the leg muscles of a person sprinting. During an average lifetime, the human heart will beat more than 2.5 billion times. Your heart pumps nearly 1,800 gallons of blood throughout your body every 24 hours. That equals 657,000 gallons per year. During an average lifetime, the heart pumps about 1 million barrels of blood, enough to fill more than 3 supertankers. Cardiovascular disease affects not only the heart, but also the miles of blood vessels throughout the body. If you were to lay all of the blood vessels in your body end to end, they would extend for 100,000 miles. Think of it. Your vascular network is equal to 4 times the circumference of the earth. Yet if you're like most people, you have probably not given much thought to the vast network of blood vessels that run throughout your body. Surprisingly, most doctors and cardiologists know very little about blood vessels and vascular disease. Out of the 130 accredited MD granting U.S. medical schools, there are only about a dozen where vascular medicine is taught. Yet breakthrough discoveries, including the Nobel Prize in Medicine, have unequivocally revealed that blood vessels are much more important than anyone ever realized. Wherever blood flows in your body, it flows through blood vessels. Atherosclerosis is the buildup of plaque on the insides of your arteries. Without proper circulation, our cells starve and don't get the necessary energy and information they need to perform correctly. When this happens, every disease known to man may be generated. Medical professionals used to think that plaque would accumulate in the arteries until it completely closed them. That's not correct. We now know that when plaque becomes large and brittle, it can crack and rupture. The crack, like any other cut, and the body clots to stop the bleeding. However, when a clot occurs in the arteries, the result can be catastrophic. We now know that the body is capable of healing itself. Damaged and blocked vessels can open up and function normally again without drugs or surgery. However, as mentioned, most doctors know very little about blood vessels and vascular disease. Instead, they are trained in cardiovascular medicine heavily influenced by Big Pharma. Cardiologists spend much of their time concentrating on the heart as a pump. They learn the skills to perform bypass surgery. About 500,000 bypass surgeries are performed in the United States each year, making it one of the most commonly performed major operations. Cardiologists also learn the skills of catheter-based interventions, performing angioplasties and putting in stents. The procedure, introduced in 1977, has grown into an $8 billion a year industry in the USA alone. In 2001, almost 2 million angioplasties were performed worldwide, making angioplasty the most common medical intervention in the world. As mentioned, in 1998, the Nobel Prize in Medicine was awarded for the discovery of a molecule produced in the lining of the blood vessels that keeps them free of plaque. This miracle molecule has been the topic of more than 20,000 medical studies since 1980. The molecule is nitric oxide. The lining of the blood vessels that produces nitric oxide is called the endothelium. It is the innermost layer of tissue that lines the blood vessel. The endothelium is only one cell layer thick. It is so razor thin that it cannot be seen by the human eye. Yet it has the surface area of 8 tennis courts. When you consider that the endothelium lines all 100,000 miles of our blood vessels. Amazingly, if all the endothelial cells in the body were lumped together, they would weigh as much as the liver. The production of nitric oxide is tightly controlled by the tissue that the vessel serves. When the smooth muscle cells that surround the blood vessels are constricted, nerve stimulation signals the endothelium to create and release small amounts of nitric oxide directly where it is needed. As a signaling molecule and as a gas, nitric oxide will diffuse freely through cell membranes. Nitric oxide signals the smooth muscle cells to relax and to open up. By causing blood vessels to open up, nitric oxide increases blood flow through them. Nitric oxide is the strongest natural relaxant of blood vessels. The nitric oxide produced in the endothelium is your body's best self-defense against heart attack and stroke. It has been said that you are only as old as your endothelium. A healthy endothelium is slick like Teflon. By contrast, an unhealthy endothelium is sticky like Velcro, causing plaque to attach. When plaque does not stick, clots don't form, blood vessels don't harden, and you won't die from a heart attack or stroke. The amino acid L-arginine is the source the endothelium uses to create nitric oxide. L-arginine is a nitric oxide producer and high-potency antioxidant that has power to reverse the buildup of cholesterol in the arteries. The scientific evidence of the benefits of L-arginine and nitric oxide are extensive. The research at Stanford, Harvard, University of South Carolina, National Cancer Institute, National Institute of Health, as well as most cardiovascular centers throughout the world, all point to L-arginine and nitric oxide as perhaps the most important discovery ever in preventing heart disease. In addition to the overwhelming scientific proof, the clinical evidence is equally impressive. Meet Dr. Joe Prendergast. Dr. Joe, as he likes to be called, is board certified in internal medicine as well as endocrinology and metabolism. On June 4, 2008, the American Diabetes Association named Dr. Joseph Prendergast Father of the Year for 2008. At the awards dinner honoring him, Dr. Joe's wife tells the following story. 2 years ago, a letter was sent out by the hospital stating that Dr. Prendergast was no longer on the staff because he was dead. This letter proved to be an embarrassment to the hospital, as Dr. Joe was alive and well. The hospital wrongfully assumed that Dr. Joe had died because he had not admitted a single patient to the hospital in 16 years. In 1991, Dr. Joe introduced L-arginine into his medical practice. As an endocrinologist, 80% of his patients have diabetes. According to the American Diabetes Association, 2 out of 3 people with diabetes will die from heart disease and/or stroke. Prior to 1991 and the introduction of L-arginine to his practice, Dr. Joe wrote that 30% of his diabetic patients ended up seeing a cardiologist for bypass procedures. Now, 18 years and 5,000 patients later, Dr. Joe has not lost one patient to a heart attack or stroke, nor has he admitted anyone to a hospital. In addition, prior to 1991, Dr. Joe's practice kept 3 cardiologists in business with his referrals. After Dr. Joe introduced L-arginine to his patients, the referrals all ended. All 3 cardiologists went out of business and had to move to new areas to practice cardiology. In his book, Dr. Joe writes, "One of my friends and colleagues is a well-respected cardiologist. I used to refer a lot of patients to him. Recently he said to me, 'Did I do something to offend you? I've noticed that you no longer send patients to me.' I said, 'It's not you. I am not sending my patients to anyone. They don't need cardiologists because we are reversing their heart disease.'" Finally, not too many of us enjoy growing old. L-arginine is the basic element that represents the best single product to take for anti-aging treatment. L-arginine is the source to nitric oxide, and nitric oxide is 1,000 times more powerful than any other natural antioxidant in the body. Antioxidants neutralize free radicals. So what do free radicals do? You just witnessed it.